And I wanted to show you what I built out for the Cloud Anthropic Hackathon this weekend. Introducing Cloud. Cloud answers questions about your Kubernetes cluster. If you're built on top of Kubernetes, you know that it helps orchestrate containerized workloads in your virtual private cloud, and it does so very robustly and at scale. But if you've ever used it day in and day out, you'll know that it's very hard to remember all the kubectl commands. Editing and debugging YAMLs is very painful. Debugging container runs is hard. You need to follow the trail to figure out if the pod is the problem, the service is the problem, is it the deployment, ingress, secret, what exactly is causing the failure. Potentially, you could script everything, but even the Python client SDK is verbose, and making serial calls to the server is really, really slow. And so I wanted to show you how Cloud can help you answer questions about your Kubernetes cluster using a simple UI. We'll come to this example in a bit. I'll kick off the other one to answer questions. But what you see here is we asked it Cloud a question, which is what pods do I have running? It first summarizes the execution plan and goes step by step through this plan. It returns and prints out the output of this plan into into an HTML and returns this to the front end along with a nice summary about what it did. We do this by using Anthropic's Cloud to generate a Python code that can be executed inside Cloud runtime. And obviously this has some security implications, and this is a hackathon project, so let's take that with a grain of salt, that this is not a production system. This slightly complex query has now worked, which is we asked it what nodes is the authentication service running on, and it lists out all the pods and figures out all the nodes and lists out the nodes and their names. Again, you see here that the code that Anthropic Cloud generated was pretty good. To make this possible, we use prompt variants. Now I'm showing you how you can stash prompts using our AI Heroes prompt stash. The initial prompt looked something like this. I asked, help me convert the following user request into a kubectl command and return the kubectl command delimited by backticks. As I iterated on this prompt, it became obvious that I needed to track every version so that I could go back to it. In this case, AI Hero also shows you how you can stash the input and the outputs of this prompt. This is what our final prompt looked like for the hackathon, which is after various iterations, we came to a structure that talked about the configuration, execution plan, default namespaces, output formatting, security considerations, and so on. To give you a couple of other examples, screenshots that I've taken off, this question asked, what nodes are prompt stash pods running on? And you can see that it was able to plan it out, but when it went to execute something, there was something wrong with the code. And maybe there is a bug in this code, but the exec command could not execute it. And so we added a failsafe wherein we retry if the command fails. This unfortunately increases the time. The second example is listing out the secrets. Now, you'd know obviously that we don't want to show the secrets here. And so you can see that the code generated by Claude is masking the secrets. In this last example, you can see a much more detailed answer from the question we asked it about what nodes are authentication pods running on. So this is what the architecture for Claude looks like. Initially, you start with your laptop and you do something like pip install Claude. Now this doesn't exist because this was a hackathon project, but if you make sure your kubectl is set up on your laptop and you say Claude setup, we install Claude on your existing Kubernetes cluster inside your VPC. And Claude assumes a security role that lets it execute kubectl commands on top of your existing Kubernetes cluster. These are the examples I showed you, the successes, the failures. One interesting part to note is it took about 19 seconds for Claude to return back the Python code. And this was because of we asked it to think step by step. And that typically, I've noticed, takes slightly longer amount of time to return the output. The code also needed to be needed to be compilable. So it took some time, perhaps, for it to come back clean. The executing the command once you got it was kind of fast, enough for Kubernetes. Finally, we were also able to trace our logs and show them in our UI. So if you look at prompt stash, you could stash each and every input and view the traces across the different services that you use. As you can see, when the prompt was originally about simple, it had simpler outputs. Maybe we can go much back in time. This one was the first prompt about return the kubectl commands in backticks in a bash request, while as the more recent one showed a complete example of what the input and the output looked like. And that was kind of what we did for the hackathon. It was a really fun hackathon. It took about, I worked out about 12 hours in the morning on Saturday and a little bit on the evening, and then a little bit Sunday morning. It was fun to talk to the different people there. There are folks I met who had come in from New York, Austin, someone from Seattle. It was fun to learn from their experience as well. Next potential steps for this would be to make it as secure as it can get. This is not a production-ready system, and I wouldn't recommend you implement it this way because there are the kubectl on your DevOps laptop that is installing stuff needs cluster admin privileges. You need cloud service to have cluster admin role for performing the kubectl operations. The Python code generated is running in exec, so there might be injection attacks. HTML code might have injection attacks. Somebody might say delete all pods and kubectl will just go, or Klaude will just go execute it. So a lot of security work needs to happen here before it can be used. And obviously the speed is very, very slow right now. So it's not even usable at this point. But essentially what I wanted to try out at some point would be something like Klaude. Spin up a PyTorch dev box for me with GPUs, perhaps so that I can train or fine-tune large language models in it. And robust evaluation of the prompt and responses is something that we could work on as well. This is something Prompt Stash enables. I just didn't get time during the hackathon to do it. Klaude has been great. Klaude, I used for this hackathon, Klaude to generate the code as well and help me out with some errors that I was getting, as you can see here. Pretty fun to use Klaude too and see that it is really, really useful. And that's it. It was a nice hackathon project. Take this with what that means. It is not a production system. I'm Rahul, the founder of AI Hero. We've released Prompt Stash that you saw, which helps you version and stash each and every template, each and every input and output, and evaluate your prompts with Pythonic unit tests, or even using another large language model. Try out Prompt Stash at AI Hero. Thank you.